No, no buzz. The Just Bees Book Club. The Running Man, Richard Bachman. This might be my least favorite Stephen King book I've read so far. Which is rough. Which is rough. I read The Stand. I read Rage. I read Roadwork. Stand's really bad. Stand's really bad. And this is not a. It's not a worse book than Rage. But I hated it so much. Just everything about the not everything about this. That I hated everything about this because it's the very high level. The very high level. I hate this book. The very high level is that this is the worst Bachman stuff, but there's actually some decent Steve King stuff in it, and it's just the contrast is so high, and it's just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Hey, go turn this off. Go download Just King Things. Go subscribe to Just King Things. They're doing that. The reason I'm doing this Stephen King in publication order because they've been doing it for a few years, and they have very, very insightful conversations about King and the work that he does, and my thoughts are pale imitations of theirs at best. The contrast is so high between the absolute plodding, miserable boredom and just incompetence of the social realism of the Bachman books with in comparison to the the propulsive writing that the King is extremely capable of and pulls off constantly. That like just from page to page, it's just like why am I doing this? I rewatched most of the Schwarzenegger film last night after reading this a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, yeah, they did the right thing. They took out all of the bad shit, and they just made a goofy movie. And it's like, this, if you just took out all the pollution shit, all the attempts at social commentary that just riddle this book. Like I said, it's been a couple weeks since I read this, and I was like fucking pissed at it when I finished. And so when I was going through yesterday before I watched the movie, I sort of went through some of my backlog and then just pulling quotes and stuff for books that are upcoming and in the timeline of this channel, I guess. I decided I would flip to 3 random pages and pull 3 random quotes. See if that was not a way to just do anything other than have to think about this book any longer. So first is legit. I just turned to 3 pages, somewhere near the beginning, somewhere near the middle, somewhere near the end. Skimmed the pages and pulled out what seemed like the most apropos quote from the thing. So page 31, and again, I'm going to read from near the end. So, if you want to, if you're a B, you're not going to read this book, so that's fine. He filled in his answer sheet rapidly, rarely stopping to deliberate or consider an answer twice. Fill-ins were followed by vocabulary, then by word contrasts. When he finished, the hour allotted still had 15 minutes to run. She made him keep his exam. Legally, he couldn't give it to her until the hour was up. So Richards leaned back and wordlessly ogled her nearly naked body. The silence grew thick and oppressive, charged. He could see her wishing for an overcoat, and it pleased him. This is not characterization. This does nothing. This changes nothing about Ben Richards as a character. It is, like I said, one of these weird, miserable attempts at sort of. I guess, in the sense that it is characterization. Richards tries to occasionally weaponize misogyny and racism to make a point about class, I guess, but not really even. Um, he's ogling the test giver because she's a pretty lady who's not wearing as many clothes as he thinks she should be. Is given that he is going to enter a game where he might be, dead because by the end of it, because it's a game show based reality. It's nothing. It's nothing except for shitty. It's just nothing. It's like this whole fucking book is. My next quote is from page 145. At this point, Ben Richards is in the trunk of a car being smuggled out of, I think, Boston or fucking wherever. They went through a sickening series of loops and dives that Richards supposed was a traffic interchange. Another 5 minutes and city sounds took over again. Richards tried repeatedly to shift his body into a new position, but it was impossible. He finally subsided, waiting numbly for it to be over. His right arm, which was curled under him, had gone to sleep an hour ago. Now it felt like a block of wood. He could touch it with the tip of his nose and feel only the pressure on his nose. This is fine. This is fine. This is Stephen King bread and butter. The paradox of King, I think, is that as I read him, sort of thoroughly, I guess, for the first time in my life. Prior to this, I had read a couple things. Primarily prior to this project, I had read a couple of things. Mostly, those were The Dark Tower, which I've read through 2-3 times in its entirety. But I had read Cujo before, and something else, I'm sure. I read Cell a long time ago and truly hated that. But reading him sort of rigorously, the paradox in both cultural sort of knowledge about him or the cultural feeling and the active act of reading, is that the man genuinely does write page turners. Like, it's just so easy to keep flipping and just keep going and get to the next thing and the next thing. And his page turners are also full of like detailed and completely unnecessary description like this. But I think at this point in my reading through, that is absolutely a part of the formula that makes the page turning work, despite that seeming like a paradox, right? Like, when you think of a page turner, you think of propulsive action of a thing happens and a thing happens and a thing happens. That's just never been true of Stephen King, and it has also always been true that he writes page turners. He gets bogged down in these moments, but it's not actually bogged down. He uses these moments very well, I think, and he does that here too. In that paragraph. So it's not all negative things, I guess, except for that this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say putting the Bachman bullshit next to that just really exacerbates what is most hateable about both of those things. Yep. Bad time. All right, page 277. The whole page. -19 and counting. Mr. Richards? Yes. We are over Newark, New Jersey. Yes, Richards said. I've been watching. Holloway? Holloway didn't reply, but Richards knew he was listening. They got a bead drawn on us all the way, don't they? Yes, Holloway said. Richards looked at McCone. I imagine they're trying to decide if they can afford to do away with their professional bloodhound here. Imagine they'll decide in the affirmative. After all they have to do is train a new one. McCone was snarling at him, but Richards thought it was a completely unconscious gesture. One that could probably be traced all the way to McCone's ancestors, the Neanderthals who had crept up behind their enemies with large rocks rather than battling to the death in the honorable but unintelligent manner. This is just like real boring dialogue. Whatever. It's fine dialogue, I guess. It's just who cares? just who cares? It's just who cares? And then the Neanderthal thing is like King getting getting fancy with it or whatever, stretching his legs, and like that's the thing, right? That's the thing with all this shit is like I'm not opposed to a writer stretching out and trying different things. I think the attempts at the sort of social novels of Bachman is a thing in the abstract that I am extremely in favor of, except that they suck. It's just done badly because it's like not the mode that he is writing in, like not even like in terms of like his capacities as a human being or whatever, because I bet he could fucking do it. I've also read Joyland, which is not a social novel necessarily. It's more of a crime with like a sort of horror tinge. I really liked that book. That is like probably a top 10, easily a top 10 King for me at this point, you know. We'll see if I ever get back to it, but like he can write in different modes. What he can't do, or what he couldn't do at the time he was writing the Bachman books, is write anything that he took the time to consider what changing that mode would require of his process. I think it's psychologizing on some level, but like the strong feeling I get is that he wants to apply the early King, sort of early science fiction / horror King method of writing, which is to say, just bang it out, to a genre that requires consideration. So he does no consideration because he's just banging it out, but he's still writing in that mode as though he has something to say, as opposed to writing in the mode of where he does have something to say, which is like in Salem's Lot. He has to say not something about the sociality of people, of class and race. He has to say that there is a good story to be told here in an interesting way. I really like it when he does that. I have a really good time when he takes a story and plays with it and writes it in a way that no one else can. They have a good time when he takes, whatever cinematic technique is obsessing him at the moment and translating it successfully into those beautiful shots of Salem's Lot. I have a great time when in Carrie he spoils his own plots, where he plays with things, where he have a great time in Cujo when he just commits, he doubles down and doubles down harder. I don't have a very good time when he writes a social novel badly and I hate it, and I think I have The Gunslinger next, so I'm really excited about that. I love The Gunslinger so much. Like, that is just one of my favorite books of all time. Probably at this point my favorite series of all time. Like, calling that anything beyond a trilogy. It's not really like a mode I read in very often, but I'm excited for The Gunslinger, I guess. This one nearly broke me, though. Yeah, they have a much more interesting conversation on Just King Things about this, and hey, thanks for not watching.